Hello guys and girls, how's it going? Screezilla here and I hope you're all well. And today we are looking at another tank from the French tech tree as we slowly unlock them as we go down the long grind. The AMX M4. Now, this tank is actually quite good. Many people are going for the Lorraine 40T over it, which is fair enough. The Lorraine 40T has got slightly better mechanics to it. But the AMX M4 is not a tank really to be overlooked. It's something you should probably play a bit because it's not a bad vehicle. Now, armor-wise, we're actually okay for armor with this tank. Now, the front plate is 80mm. Now, originally when this tank was designed, it was only 30mm, so luckily we've got the 80mm variant. It's got the side sections here, which gives it, which are 60mm, but give when angled have an effect of almost 150mm thickness when front on. Now frontally you've got about 130mm of protection on the front plate, which is pretty decent at 6.0. You're going to be able to bounce a few shots at distance. You're quite well protected. You have to bear in mind the lower plate is a weak point and it can be penetrated rather easily. Your driver and machine gunner are at risk there, of course, as well. The turret, again, relatively good armor. Now, you've got this chin plate here on the oscillating turret, which gives you a little bit of spaced armor, as you can see. There's a little gap between here and the turret. Now, the actual turret itself also has the... where are we? So, you can see the turret has basically three sections. So we've got 85mm, then there's this little tiny sliver around the outside, which is 8mm. So which is just sort of mainly around the turret ring, but it does go up a little bit. It's a little bit hard to see, but it does go up a little bit, so that's quite handy. It's hard to get actually in this view. But it does give you that little bit of extra protection. But also you've got your main turret section, which is 85mm, which with this angling as well, it gives you relatively good armor protection. You will bounce quite a few shots from this. Side on, you are very vulnerable. Yeah, basically side on, this thing's dead. From the back, this thing's dead. So all in all, that front on is quite good. It's got 8 degrees of depression, which is not too bad considering it's an oscillating turret, and with that it does mean you can have quite a good little bit of depression, so you can work ridgelines okay. The turret does sit quite high again, so ridgelines are not a... they are a possibility, so you can work the ridgelines in it. The 90mm gun again is very good. The gun has almost 1,000 meters per second velocity, which gives you nearly 190mm of penetration at 100 and 180 at 500 meters. So, you know, you do get quite a good penetration value. The HE shell's not worth taking. This is an autoloader as well, so you have, I think it's 7 shots in the... 7 shots, I think it is with this one. How many we got there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep, 7 shot autoloader, and it is in that sort of drum case design. So I kind of wish they would improve the auto-loading speed, but I'll get into that in a moment. So let's hop into a replay here. Now, the M4 was designed to resemble the German Tiger. The French needed a tank after the war in 1945, and this was one of their sort of vehicles they were working on. Now, all in all, it's relatively good. Now, it's nowhere near the Tiger II's levels of protection, but the gun is very similar to the 88 KWK 43 in performance and muzzle velocity, even though it is a little bit bigger. The tank was okay. This was actually the prototype variant. the M4 didn't really go into production. It was just a prototype for the AMX 50 with the, I think it's a 100mm or 120mm gun on it. But all in all, it's not bad at all. In game, it plays pretty well. It's a relatively nimble tank. It's got a little bit of agility to it. It's not the fastest tank in the world, but you do have that bit of agility. At 6.0, I think this one feels perfectly balanced. You wouldn't want it any higher, you wouldn't want it any lower. This is a really good spot for it. Now, the biggest drawback to this tank, I would say, is the oscillating turret, and that's the thing with all French tanks, but I'll get into that in a little bit of time as well. The tank was powered by a Maybach engine, I think it was the V12 variant, which gave it quite good performance. The engine deck, as you can see, is quite a large engine deck here. It almost looks like the Japanese type what is it? I can't think of the name of that Japanese tank. But one of the Japanese tanks, the first Japanese tank that was made after the war, basically. It's a similar look to that, just with that sort of step-up section there, slightly smaller turret ring. You know, it's still not in that modern design look. It still has that slight World War II era sort of design to it, but it's more modern than some tanks. Now, it's got very good traversability. It's very good at range as well. I was using this on the Maginot Line, and I was actually getting some good shots off at over, well, probably over about 12,000 meters. I was getting some good shots and some hits on Panthers, things like that. Not easily, but it was happening. All in all, the M4, I would say, is well worth researching into and using. Now, as I said, the Lorraine 50T is probably the better tank out of the two, but generally you don't want to have just one tank in your lineup, so this can work really well as a backup vehicle. As I said, it's got very good fire rate. It's got a very good well, the fire rate is okay, but it's got very good penetration and it's got very good maneuverability. The one thing that is disappointing is the fire rate. And I say that because the autoloader just feels very slow on its reload. And yeah, that's the thing with the autoloaders, they don't feel fast. You know, you've got about a 5-6 second sort of reload between shots, and it just feels like it should be a little bit quicker. Now right here we're just edging around, and hello, got a Panzer 470 there. That's the end of him. Just holding back a bit and keeping my eye around, and a Tiger is going to blunder its way past in a moment. Hello, Tiger. Now get the aim on sight. Get a good shot there. I get a pretty lucky shot because the biggest problem with these tanks is the turret wobble. As you can see, whenever you move with these oscillating turrets, your turret is flailing around. And yeah, it really does affect the ability of this tank. And it's a bit of a shame, really, because it really does kill your ability to do much in these tanks. On the move, you are absolutely hopeless, and the same goes for all oscillating turrets. Really, you're pretty much buggered if you're moving. So you've got to go with stationary shots, which can be quite hard because, well, generally you're always moving because there's no stabilization with these turrets. Ostwind comes around, get a good shot there, go straight through the top of his turret. Now the Lorraine shoots him as well. We don't kill him. Now you can see one of the issues with these solid shots is for light targets you just don't get that instant kill, which can be very frustrating. But we're going to come around here, and I'm really keeping an eye out for things. I'm being extra cautious in this match, in this tank. As I say, it's been okay, and I've blocked a few shots with it, but it's not. You can't really rely on the armour at all. And the biggest problem you do face with this vehicle is the fact that, well, you have to be stationary to shoot. So I'm going to edge around the corner here, and there's a Tiger E over there pointing towards me. But you get a nice shot straight into his ammo, and that's the end of him. So the gun performs well in some respects, but as I said, sometimes that solid shot can be a burden as well, because you get some iffy fragmentation. I've also had some problems with this tank actually just not, the shells just disappearing. And right here we're going to see the biggest problem of this vehicle. So we're just moving around the corner here. There's a Panther D there that I think I completely missed, actually. I completely missed the Jag Panther, and I was in a slight dip. My gun was wobbling around and I couldn't get the shot off. So let's just head back to the garage, the hangar. Hangar, that's the word. So final thoughts on this tank. Yeah, it's well worth it. It's a good tank to use. It's got a good low profile to it. I think it's actually slightly lower than the Lorraine. Quite similar actually. Not too much difference, but the Lorraine does have that 100mm gun to it. As I said, this was the prototype. The AMX 50 is the true tank that came out, and as you see, the AMX 50 they look pretty much identical. Really, there's not much difference there. The armour is all the same. They've got a slight, I think, actually angled it slightly more. But it has got that 100mm gun as well. But it sort of suffers some of the same issues. One of the interesting things, though, is it does have the interlapping, I'm going to go with that word, road wheels, as you can see. Similar to that of the Panther and Tiger. Again, as I said, they did use a lot of that sort of knowledge from the Panther and the Tiger to design this tank. So hence the sloping of the armour and things like that. Also, the gun was kind of worked off the 8.8cm KWK-43. It was tweaked a lot, but hey, that's what you've got to do when you're rebuilding your country after a war. Overall, this tank is pretty good and well worth researching and using. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think below. Let me know what you think about this this tank as well. Love to get your thoughts on it if you've used it. And I will see you next time. Have a lovely day and have a great Christmas. This is Screezilla out. Bye bye.